Alrighty, so a little bit late tonight, but we got the teams in. I might actually start with my team. So straight into what happened last week, we went 2-5-3-5. So I think last week was the best week that I'd had this season, and then I'd say this has been the second best week I've had this season. So top 2% for the round, and top 6% overall now, and climbing the ranks. So I think last week I overtook JD from the Fantasy Take podcast. I was pretty stoked with that. However, that was only because he made a rookie error, and I was feeling for him for that. We've all been there. But this week, I have overtaken NO and am hot on the heels of Supercoach George. So I think that to give some perspective here, JD is about 80 points behind me, maybe a little more, but certainly less than 100. And he's about ranked 15,000, okay? And Supercoach George is about 100 points in front of me, maybe like 110, and he is only 2,000 ranks ahead of me. So it means there's a lot of people behind me. So if I have a bad week, it could really be quite catastrophic. And obviously, we're coming into the buys, and you might say when it comes to Supercoach, the buys are a place where you sort of separate the men from the boys a little bit. And if I go back and look through my history, it's unfortunate, but the truth is, in the past, you'd have to classify me as a boy. And I'm hoping I've matured into a Supercoach man, and we're going to find out, because I don't believe I've ever in the past come out of the buys better than I went into the buys. So I'm not saying I'm in a fantastic position, but this is the first time that I've actually ever been competitive in terms of the team value. So I've always been way behind, and it's always just been like, well, if your team value is terrible, it's a pretty good proxy for you not really being highly competitive. So very happy that I am sort of right up there in terms of the ranks. Like if you go in the top 10, there's probably 2 or 3 with a lower team value than me. And I think that's, that gives me a lot of confidence. So this week is super important. The ones that I'm looking out for are basically those fringe players. D's dump 4. Ooh. Frio's triple blow. Oh gosh, hopefully Brody's alright. So this looks like there's been a little bit of movement, and we're about to find out what's happened. So Jack Carroll's one. I'm not expecting him to play. Oh wait, what am I talking about? That's embarrassing. It's Carlton have a bye, so scratch that. That's a bit embarrassing. But all right, so let's see what we got. So anyone who brought in Bailey Smith now has him back in, so that's going to be good for them. That was to be expected. Shannon Neal has been omitted, so he's not someone that anyone will be able to downgrade to. I think he just played the one game, so if he had got a second, then you could have looked at bringing him in possibly for the last bye or something like that, but maybe not, just because his job security wasn't great, and hence why he's been omitted. Okay, so far so good. I don't think I have a single West Coast or Adelaide player. So that does not matter to me, and I don't think many people do. Maybe Rory Laird's a popular option now, but I don't think there's a single West Coast player. I've seen a few people with Witherden, and Witherden had gotten off to a great start and looked like one of those picks that it's just like, come on, surely that can't work, and now it's starting to sort of taper off a little bit. Okay, so I just want to make sure Petrarca's definitely playing. Obviously, he had a really bad game last week. Not expecting him to be dropped, but he was sick, and I don't know. Was a little worried for some reason about him. Looks like he's going to play. Okay, we've got Joel Jeffrey and Malcolm Roses playing, so that's super important. This week is so important to have the rookies that you have chosen for the buys to be playing. So important. It's crazy. It can really flip your season, and I'll get into a little bit of how close the margins are this season in just a little bit. So Malcolm Roses playing, Joel Jeffrey playing, 2 crucial players for me. So I actually brought in Joel Jeffrey last week. I wasn't sure what I was going to do after finding out that Braden Pruce wasn't going to play. And was that the reason why I didn't know what to do? No, Luke Cleary didn't play, so I couldn't choose him anymore. And then most people actually got rid of Braden Preuss on the news that he wasn't playing, which makes a lot of sense. The only time it wouldn't make sense is if you did what I did. And another person that did this was Supercoach DR. If you ever watched his videos, he was hoping to do a single trade Preuss to Gawn. So the reason I held Preuss was purely to do that. And that's my one trade this week, which I'll get into in a moment. But looks like I do just kind of want to touch on Luke Mcdonald for one moment. So I wanted to bring him in. There's an opportunity that I had to do that when he would have been 400k. And I even posted in the Discord, what about Luke Mcdonald, you guys? He could be a good pick, like a solid D6, or you'd flip him in the buys, similar to what you might be doing with a Butters or a Cornelio. So it's a bit of a headache having to get rid of players like that. And sometimes you have the trades where it's possible to do something like that, but sometimes you just don't. But Luke Mcdonald, I saw him as a player that was great value, and he's actually, sadly, this is really depressing, but he's actually outscored Jaden Short, who I had to wait an extra week. So I got a rookie on field for that week. I had to wait an extra week, and I got 4 scores out of Jaden Short for like 94 average, and Luke Mcdonald would have averaged for the 5 weeks 102. So that would have been a brilliant pick, but we just don't know if he's going to keep it up, and he is prone to a stinker. He's also coming off I think he went like more or less 2 130s-ish in a row. So obviously his average for the season isn't going to be that good. So it's a little bit inflated at the moment. But for the last 5 rounds, that would have looked like a way better decision considering he was about 135,000 cheaper. So I'm a little cut when I see him do well, but no one has him, so I really don't care that much. But it's like, oh, that would have been nice. That's really all it is. What a terrible pick Jake Lloyd's turned out to be. If anyone ended up picking him up at a low price, just hasn't been the goods. He's not top 6 material at all. So yes, okay, Brody, it looks like he's going to play. That's really good. Just a little bit worried when you see players out and you just don't know who it's going to be. Playing in half forward. That's a weird place to name him, but no Nat Fife. I think they're going to bring him in through the waffle. And then I guess, what is it? Brisbane, nothing going on there. So there's not really many games to even look at. And then Hawthorne. I don't think I have any Hawthorne play other than Connor McDonald, who looks like he's kept his spot. Please don't be on the bench. That just made me... Is he? He's not on the bench. So he's actually been named on field, so he's definitely going to play. I love to see that. That just means like I don't even have to bother looking tomorrow night. I know he's going to be playing, and that's awesome. So it's great when they're not named on the emergency bench. But I think it's basically to be expected. Everyone, I think, is playing, but you never know. Sometimes I click on my team, and there's a little red dot, and it's absolutely terrible. But I don't see any. So I'm going to undo my changes and have a little chat about where things are at. Okay. So I think I'm in a really, really good spot, if I'm being honest. And I'm bullish. I'm really bullish. It's particularly after the last 2 rounds. I don't know how many ranks I've jumped. But I found this bloody history tab, which I've been checking out a decent amount. So season rank, I was 22,000 just 2 rounds ago, and now I'm top 10. So that is quite an astronomical jump. So I'm pretty happy about that. And if I can continue rising the way I have been, the top 1K, what I've been saying, it's a serious possibility. It's a serious possibility. I'd be so pumped if I got top 1K. It would just like totally validate the whole reason for making these videos pretty much. I'd be like, cool, I'm not a total pretender. And then we've got 2021. So I do want to show you guys my Supercoach history. So I started in 2019. I mentioned before I was like living in Korea, and I didn't know how to play. Clearly by these lines here. And what I did was I watched Supercoach George, and he basically taught me how to play, and I sort of started to get an idea of what a cash cow was, what a primo was, what a pod was, all those sorts of things. I had absolutely no knowledge prior to this. This is the first season I ever played. I remember having Tom Lynch in the team, scored 3 goals on debut or something, and he got a 60, and I was thinking, this makes no sense. He had a good game. How did he get such a shit score? But, you learn the rules of the game and you get better. So, clearly I didn't learn quickly, and it was a bit of a travesty. I think what I ended up doing actually was putting all my eggs in one basket, trying to win the round. Obviously, there was no hope of this ever happening, but I was like, oh, well, I'm already down at 63,000 after 11 rounds, or 76 after 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in all the best players that I can just for one buy. So I think probably these 3 weeks I brought in just primos for this buy to have as many as possible to try and win the that particular buy like that week, because I think there was a prize. I don't remember, $1,000 or something. Anyway, obviously didn't win, but that's why I have a big spike there. And then that basically ruined me for the rest of the season. But I'd given up, and it was annoying me watching and not being good. Like, I think if you're watching your Supercoach team's doing all right, it's not the end of the world. It's still a nightmare watching some games, and you just like have a player that's not performing, or don't have a player that is performing well, or there's a guy you want to get in, and if he makes too much money, you're not going to be able to get him. Like, well, I was so worried about Max Gorn last week. When he was making intercept marks, I was honestly like, I don't know, like punching my chair and shit. Anyway, that's 2019. So then I went into 2020, and I actually sort of know what I'm doing, but it's the COVID year, and I've picked a shit tons of Demons players, and they just got absolutely spanked with all the COVID protocols, more than almost anyone else, and they brought in all these new obscure rules, and this guy's going to score, there's going to be 18 this round because of COVID, blah, blah, blah. And it was just a shit season. And like some people benefited from that and others didn't. I feel like I didn't. And I ended up finishing at 7-9, 7-9. So, I mean, it's a massive improvement. And then I basically halved that again the following year. And, oh man, last year was a nightmare, to be honest. But still considerably better than the previous year. And then this year, we're hoping for basically top 1K. That's what I'd like. But I guess the way I've been going, top 2K is... I don't know. Every year it's been halving. So, but I want top 1K this year. I feel like I've learnt enough that I can be a serious player. That's what we're hoping for anyway. So I'm going to go back to the team and just have a look at where we went well last week. So obviously Tom Stewart. I started Tom Stewart, and in the first round, I remember Aaron Hall had an absolute ripper, and I was tossing up with myself. I had Aaron Hall on my team, and I was like, oh, I just know the right decision's Tom Stewart. I'm going to go with the safe play. He's got the scoring history, and obviously the injury history wasn't really there. And then I decided I'd do Tom Stewart. And when Aaron Hall went well, back to that punch in the couch, I was pissed. I was so annoyed at myself. Why didn't I pick Aaron Hall? I knew he had the scoring power, blah, blah, blah. He got like a 140. And how wrong was I? Like, Aaron Hall's never scored a 174, let alone I think Tom Stewart also has scored a 189 earlier, 187 earlier this year. What a pick Tom Stewart's been, and because he's done so well, and because of that 187 that he got, like he got a 187 in between a 97 and a 74. Usually when someone gets a 74 and they're a premium, it's like, oh sweet, he'll come down in price. Not this guy. Like he gets a 74. He didn't even go down in price. Oh, he did go down in price here, a decent amount, but like not to a level where a lot of people are picking him up. So 24% of teams owned by. He is the pod. He's the savior. Well, we'll get to the savior. It's actually someone else, but he has really been probably my best pick. Well, without question, my best starting pick this year. So awesome player. Obviously, he missed that one round, so you do have to take that into account because basically you end up with a rookie score, so maybe that brings his average down a little bit. What a pick Tom Stewart's been, and I'm so happy that I got him, man. So happy. And like all the stress that I had about not having Hall was totally in vain. I actually originally, in my first ever video that I made, had James Sicily starting. So that would have been such a baller play. I had James Sicily picked over Lockie Whitfield. And I am a bit cut that I didn't stick with that pick, obviously in hindsight, but who could have ever have thought James Sicily would be doing a 118.5 average by this point in the season? I mean, any defender at all being at that level. And then George Hewitt. I mean, look at George Hewitt's consistency. This is just incredible. He hasn't gone down. He hasn't gone below 111 for the year. I would say that's the highest floor of any player. In fact, I would gamble a lot of money on that. No player after this many rounds so far this season has had a higher floor than George Hewitt. Without question. Look at that for consistency. Look at that. That is a midfield that you could have picked him in the midfield and he would have been one of the greatest starting picks of all time in the midfield, and he's a defender. I mean, wow, that's crazy. So just wanted to give a shout out to those three guys and then have a little talk about where my team's at and what I decided to do before going into this round just gone, where obviously I crushed it. Simple as that. So this is the team I went in with, obviously. A few things I didn't obviously nail, which is a pity. So what that says to me is, fuck, how good could I have gone if I actually nailed it? And if anyone watched my last video, they know that I went into the round with VC on Neil. I had the VC on Neil, and back to sometimes when you watch Supercoach and you get super frustrated watching it, and you're like, why didn't I do that? I should have done that, and then it almost ruins your entire round/weekend because you can't stop thinking about those extra. In this case, it's 62 points that I could have gotten. It's absolutely crushing. It's devastating. Like, what type of score could I have gotten? And then you find out it's top 2% anyway, and it's like, okay, bro, stop being such a drama queen. But this is to my point, which I said I'd get to, which was this year, the buzzword is small margins. Okay, small margins. Now consider this. Last week, Clayton Oliver goes 178. I don't have the captaincy on him. Shit. All right, I get the captaincy on Darcy Parish. I lose 50 points. Not the end of the world, but that sucks. And it pisses me off. You shouldn't be penalised for having a player, and then that player does so well that it's actually worse that you didn't captaincy him despite actually still having the player. That hurts when that happens. So fast forward to this week and we go, Lockie Neal, I had him, the VC on him, I had it there, and then the teams came out and I looked and I thought, to be fair, with a little bit of influence, which really does bug me when it doesn't work out, a little bit of influence from the Fantasy Take crew. They put they didn't VC Lockie Neal, I don't think. I think JD was the only one to do that. And I thought, yeah, maybe. But it hadn't swung me at that point. But then I looked at the teams whilst listening to them and thought, Matt de Boer has been named to play as a follower for GWS. So I'm thinking, there's only one reason you play Matt de Boer as a follower. And this is actually, I'm about to get a little bit enraged because this is how I was feeling. There's only one reason that you play Matt de Boer as a follower in any circumstance. And that's if he's going to tag somebody. So I watched the game. And Harry Perryman is going to Lockie Neal, but not really playing that hard of a tag. He's not playing that hard of a tag. And it's like, where's Matt de Boer? Matt de Boer's nowhere to be seen. He got 7 disposals. So second worst Supercoach scorer out of everyone. Why the fuck was he in the team? Aren't you like a new coach, bro? You're a new coach, aren't you? So why are you making the most stupid decisions possible and putting your team in a position, basically robbing a rookie that could be coming in and playing and developing for some guy who is obviously over the hill, unless you play him as a specialist, which is his only role that he can actually do effectively in the team, and play as a tagger. Matt de Boer is not an AFL level player unless he's tagging. Everyone knows that. So you name him as a follower. There's only one reason he's going to be there. You know what I mean? Like, this is trademark Leon Cameron. Is Leon Cameron gone? Because it feels like he's still there to do something that makes total sense and then just do the complete opposite of that. Be like, yeah, Matt DeBoer, I don't even know where he played. Didn't see him. Anyway, didn't tag Lachie Neale, and Lachie Neale goes 164, and it's like, are you fucking serious? Like, I felt like I made a very thought-out, logical decision, and then in typical Leon Cameron style, ironically, the new coach comes in and just, like, obliterates anything that makes any sense about that. So, I don't know that guy's first name. I know his last name is McVeigh, and I know that when you say McVeigh, you don't think of him. You think of the guy that was actually successful, so that's a burn, and that's me being super, super, super salty. But that's how I was feeling. So there's a bit of, when I was watching it, these were my emotions. So it wasn't pretty. It was not pretty. So I was really, really cut when Lachie Neale went really well, because I think this is exactly what happened last week. And it essentially cost me 62 points this week and 50 points last week. So if I had had those extra points just by choosing the correct captain, I mean, they're in my team, for goodness sake, we'd be looking at being ahead of Supercoach George right now, and I'd be absolutely flying. Absolutely flying, boys. And I'll be super pumped about where I'm at. I am. I'm very happy with where things sit. But what type of fat scores was I going to get last week and this week? What sort of position was I going to be in? And then the other spot where I could have maximised my score was obviously this Joel Jeffrey, Corey Durden. So originally I did have Joel Jeffrey in there. I had him in the team playing. Super stoked that I brought him in. Super stoked. I mean, he's going to make money. He's going to make money, man, and fast. So that's going to be really, really helpful if you're trying to do things like get Bulldogs players into the forward line, stuff like that. It's going to be helpful just to have a random guy come out of the blue and make some money real quick. Because, I mean, he could shoot like 51-51, North Melbourne, Adelaide. I think he's going to do better than that. He could be 300k pretty quickly. So we're hoping that he does well. And bringing him in during the buys to actually definitely play on field against North Melbourne and then Adelaide, basically the two best possible opponents other than maybe Essendon. West Coast will be probably pretty good too. But yeah, North Melbourne and Adelaide. This one's going to be at Metricon, so they're not playing at Adelaide Oval. I like that. I really like that. I mean, he went 95 at Metricon Stadium. He's gone 93 in his, I believe it's his, I'm not sure if it's his hometown, but he certainly used to play his football in Darwin. It's Malcolm Rose's hometown. So having him on field is another one where it's like, he's a pod at this point, 22%, and Joel Jeffrey super pod, 9%. So these guys in my buys, these are the guys that are the game changers. So it's so important that they do well. So the fact that they're versing North Melbourne this week, it couldn't be more perfect for me. Couldn't be more perfect. All right. So I'm just going to go through what I'm going to do for this round. So obviously it's the first bye round, and this is where the team is currently at. So I didn't trade Braden Pruce out. I knew he wasn't going to play. And I know a lot of people went to Jared Witts. So that's his name, right? Jared? I believe so. I decided I'd go for Gawn purely for the price. I don't know who's going to outperform who. And if they were the same price, honestly, I don't know who I'd choose. It's such a difficult one to choose. I think, interestingly, I would go for Max Gawn based entirely on injury history. So Witts has come out of the gate, all guns blazing, and he's maybe dropped 2 bad scores this year, maybe 3. Other than that, he's just been on fire. But let's not forget, this guy's never had a full season for the Gold Coast, I don't think. I mean, certainly not to this level. Like, I would go and check his history, but I mean, this is just unprecedented for him. So anyone that started him is in a ridiculously good position, or at least a way better position than they would have been otherwise, because he wasn't on anyone's radar. It was only really because he was well priced and people were a little bit iffy on Gawn and a little bit iffy, some people, on Grundy at the start of the season. So, well, I was iffy on Grundy. I think I still started him though. All right, so this week, fortunately for me, Gawn didn't go super, super well. He still went the best for all of the Melbourne Demons, but not good enough so that I couldn't do this trade. So I was very, very happy that I could do this, because this is all I wanted to do, man. So I got Braden Preuss to Max Gawn, and what this does is it gives me 19 players on field this week. And I think that a lot of people will have 18 players this week. And I think next week is probably the most difficult buy for most people. However, you do get the benefit of having trades next week to be able to fix that problem. So this is how things stand, and I'm just going to bring on the players that are actually going to play as quickly as I can. So we know McComb's going to play, Parrish is not, Cripps isn't playing, but Mcdonald is. So happy Mcdonald's playing. We've got Darcy and Gawn already in the team, and we're going to need to bring on Roses and Jeffrey. Okay. So then I'm going to do this, and this is, just for, I guess, symmetry, I'm going to do this. So we've got 4 in the defence. We've got a full midfield. We've got these 2 guys, and we got 1 missing in the forward line. So that makes 19. And then the decision becomes, what about captaincy? So after the last 2 weeks, we've realised that the captaincy is super, super important. And you got to wonder, am I going to get it right this week? I need to get it right, because it's so frustrating when you don't, and it makes such a big difference, particularly in the buys. And I've had a good think about this. And I had it basically VC McRae, Captain Oliver for quite some time. Didn't really think I was going to change it. Then I sat down this morning and I had a little tinker, and a little look around, and I thought, what about Took Miller? We've got Gold Coast versus North Melbourne. And what do we know about North Melbourne? We know that they're absolutely terrible. We know that 2 weeks ago they were in the media, and sometimes when you're in the media, it can rile you up and you can come out and maybe have a better performance than you would otherwise. That's all gone now. No one's really talking that much about North Melbourne. I don't even know what they're talking about. Buddy Franklin and Trent Cotchin at the moment. You know what I mean? The judiciary, the Sydney lawyer, I don't even know if you call him that, but the guy arguing Buddy's case said Cotchin should have won a Logie because of the way he acted when he got a push to the chest. And it's like, bruh, I don't think so, man. Buddy clearly pushed him in the face, at the bottom of the chin, and it definitely deserved a week. Now, I am actually fucking going to Melbourne this week, and I'm probably going to go to that game. So I was so hoping, both hands clasped, that Buddy Franklin would play this week, because I've never seen Buddy live. And Buddy, in my opinion, is the most entertaining AFL player I have ever seen. And to be honest, it doesn't come close. He's the guy, he gets the ball, he makes you dream. He makes the magic happen. He's the guy. The team needs him to do something magical, and he just does it. He's who's that commentator? Who's the commentator? I think he used to do the grand finals. He's like that kind of little guy. Hutto. Yeah? Hutto. When Hutto said that Franklin was the greatest showman, he wasn't wrong. And that's the best way I can think to sum up Buddy. I mean, I know that last week they had a bit of a tight contest and he was the catalyst, I think. And he just nails goals when the team needs it. And it's like, he gets the ball, he's not necessarily the best set shot kick, but the best set shot kick under pressure, I'd take it Buddy every time. I'm just I know he's going to kick this. The team needs it. He's going to kick it. So it would have been so, so awesome to watch Buddy Franklin, whether he was going to show up on that night or not. Melbourne's got that bounce back game where they've just lost after however many wins they won in a row. They're going to come out for blood. they're going to come out and probably put a statement on Sydney. And Sydney are a really, really good team. So who knows how Buddy would have gone against him, but Stephen May wouldn't have been playing on him. So it would have been pretty cool. Anyway, I was really hoping Buddy would get away with it, I guess, because he definitely deserved a week at least. But then the lawyer comes out and starts, his case was just so bad. He just had such a bad case. He shouldn't have been so forthright in I think Buddy said, what did Buddy say? I don't know. What did Buddy say? He did say, he's like, I was looking at him in the eyes, yeah. And then he was like, I don't remember where I hit him or something like that. And it was like, oh, that's not going to fly. That's not going to cut the mustard, bud. And then the lawyer comes in and he goes, oh, bloody Trent Cotchin could have won a Logie with that performance. And it's like, bro, you shouldn't have gone so... it was just so desperate. And I'm happy that they tried to fight it because there's a chance, but I felt like the way they handled it was just like, nah, there's no way with that terrible argument you could possibly say, yeah, okay, bud, you can play, man. And then the amount of issues that would cause down the track with other people with similar cases being like, hey, buddy got away with it. So probably the right result in the end, considering all things considered. So what I've decided to do then is pop the VC on Touk Miller. Now, Touk Miller has not had the most consistent season, and it's been a little disappointing. I mean, he's down 100k with a 173 break even. That says it all. A 3-round average of 99, 5-round average 116. You might be thinking, why would you put it on this guy? But 130, 122, 160, 140, 137, he does have a high ceiling. And if there's one team that this guy is perfect to verse, it's North Melbourne. Because Touk Miller runs his opponent into the ground. He's one of the best runners in the game. And Alistair Lynch, whenever they're watching the game, he's always like, you've got to come and watch this guy live. The way he runs, the way he works, it's like nothing I've ever seen. So I go, bloody oath, Lynchy, I've never seen him live, but I take his word for it. And you do see it. He racks up a lot of marks. I'd say he gets a lot more marks than the average, contested ball beast. Bit Sam Walsh-like is Touk Miller, I would say. So I think it's absolutely perfect for North Melbourne, and I think that's the approach that I'm going to go with. Now, I do really like the VC on Jack McRae, and the reason I like that is because I'm flying to Melbourne on Saturday, and I don't want to have to deal, literally in the afternoon, and I don't want to have to deal with being on Supercoach and being like, oh, I need to change my captain or whatever. So I'd love to just get that Friday VC out of the way. How good is it when you get a good VC and you just don't have to worry about it? You chuck the captain on, nothing better than chucking the captain on someone on your loophole. Just chucking the captain on Hewitt, for example. He's not playing, you get your VC. That's just the best. And then nowadays in Supercoach, it even shows the actual VC captaincy score, and you're just like, sweet. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go. So it's certainly tempting to pop it on McRae, but I'm not gonna do that because I don't have that much faith in Touk Miller going big. Obviously, like I said, been a little inconsistent, but I think he's he's a perfect option for VC. Perfect VC option. The guy that really could put a statement game on North Melbourne this week. So I think he's the perfect VC if you've got him. We'll see how that goes. Don't take my advice because it might not work, but if you agree with what I'm saying, pop it on him. He could go really big against North Melbourne. I mean, Sinclair went 140 last week. Different position, different type of player, but that kind of running the fuck around and just working hard seems to do really well against North Melbourne because they don't deal well with combating that with, running with you. They're a bit like, we're bad. That's it. Okay. So that's how I'm going into this week. And I might just touch on also what I'm looking at doing next week. So round 12, I'm going to have the 19. I've got green dots on all of them. Do have green dots on all of them, so that's really good. And then we're going to have round 13 looking like this, which doesn't look great. However, I will be trading out DeConning. I'm going to trade out McComb. So these two I'd say are guaranteed trade outs. And the two that will come in, presuming they're playing, are Jacob Ware from GWS. I think it's Mitch Owens. Definitely the last name's Owens for St Kilda. So a 123k guy and a 117k guy. Perfect rookies. And then I get to bring in one Uber Primo. Now it's tight. The money's tight. So if they get their projected scores, I get it pretty easily. But if they get, really disappointing scores, if someone drops an absolute stinker, then I'm going to have to maybe look at dropping Corey Durden, who is going to play, and it's going to be like, ooh, losing an extra player on the field, is it worth it to make this happen? Or might have to get rid of Joel Jeffrey if he makes enough money and Roses doesn't, or something like that. What I've learned in Supercoach is like, bruh, take it week by week, man. Take it week by week. Like, there's so many things change, and whatever you had planned, particularly when it's, 2 or 3 weeks in advance, it's like, sure, definitely plan, like, because it's fun to do that, but don't expect that to happen. Like, this game is just like not something that you should plan too far ahead. So I do definitely play this game week by week, and I'd say that's a really important piece of advice, actually. Nevertheless, next week, DeConning, McComb, and probably Roses. And we're going to bring in, like I said, Ware, Owens, and the big bombshell, my man. And I am bullish on this guy, man. I'm bullish. And he's just the perfect player. So when you're bringing in a round 13 player, you're obviously only going to pick someone who is got a round 12 bye. Interestingly, what that means is that because that player is going to play in both round 13 and round 14, the most valuable players in the game for that period are the first bye round players. So in fact, if you had two players that were going to get the same score for the whole season, the first bye round player is more valuable fundamentally than the 13 and 14 bye round player. Simple as that. Because they get 2 bye rounds, whereas no one else does. That you can bring into your team. So obviously, we're talking about players bringing into the team. So the man I'm going to choose, since I already have Sinclair and Parrish, who would have been my number one targets, is my man and last member of my midfield, this guy. Walsh lad. It's Walsh lad. It's Walsh lad. Let's go. Now, this guy is scary. He's the perfect back-end season player. He runs around. He doesn't care about, the end of the year and people sort of slowing down and taking it a little easy. He just goes, and goes. That's the style of Sam Walsh. He's like the old Lockie Whitfield, the prime Lockie Whitfield, who used to just be like, sweet, the end of the season, I'm going to get 40 because everyone's over it. Not this guy. Well, sorry, this guy does that too. And look at these scores, dude. Look at these scores. He only got 2 shitty scores, maybe 3 with the 106. 101 ain't good, but he does have a high ceiling, and I was very worried that against Collingwood he might go a lot bigger than 123. He had a 190 against them last year. So that was 193 he went against Collingwood last year. So I was like, oh my gosh, if he does that again. But Collingwood were really good defensively against Fremantle the week before. And then this week, I think they also brought, they won. They beat Carlton. So Collingwood's having a little bit of a resurgence. Don't expect it to last. I don't see them as a top 8 team. But, having a good little patch. So good for them. I like Craig McRae. He seems like just a good fella. I like him more than I like Nathan Buckley. I'll put it that way. But yeah. Don't mind seeing Collingwood do well, but I don't see it as a sustainable thing. But Sam Walsh against a shit side is just that's just what you want. In saying that, he's had his bad performances against Gold Coast and Adelaide, but I'm not exactly sure what you put that down to. Sometimes he racks up insane amounts of disposals and just doesn't get the score that reflects that because he must have butchered it or whatever. But you can pretty much guarantee he's going to go 30 plus almost every game, particularly if he versus a bad opponent. And then he's got Essendon, Richmond, West Coast, Adelaide, I think, is still a really good team to verse. Collingwood at the end. But he's only really got, in terms of a difficult midfield, I think Geelong's still actually a really good opponent to verse, particularly at the MCG. In terms of a good midfield, you got Fremantle, St Kilda, and probably a Jack Steele-less St Kilda as well, so not quite as strong. And then Brisbane and Melbourne, and the midfielders this year have been scoring alright against Brisbane, so super bullish on Walsh, and that would pretty much leave me, other than maybe Rory Laird, with the best possible, I'd trade Petrarca for Laird obviously, but with the best possible midfield you can get. And then I think I've got the best possible defence, except for maybe Short. We'll see. I still have belief in Short, even though he's kind of burnt me with the last kind of 4 scores have been mediocre overall because of that 88 and 85. But Sydney's a tough matchup. Hawthorne are actually a team that players aren't scoring heaps against. They seem to have a lot of good pressure. Like, for example, Lachie Neale went like 100 against them or something like that. So I'm still bullish on Short, not giving up on him yet. He burnt me last year, so I am still, a little bit salty about that, and that still hurts. But we'll see what happens with him. I'm still bullish. Port Adelaide, very concerned about Carlton. But yeah, so I pretty much have the perfect defence minus Short. I'd probably trade him, honestly, to Jordan Dawson at this stage. And I could have brought in Jordan Dawson instead of Short, but at that time, I just didn't think it was a good idea. I hadn't seen enough from Dawson, but he's just a player, because he's had such an inconsistent role. It's like, what are you going to get? And every week he's just like so effective with his disposal. And that's the kind of player you kind of want in Supercoach. So he's got that really high ceiling, because if he can get, 25 plus even disposals, he's going to have a big game. Shorty needs like 35 probably to have a big game. So Jordan Dawson is the one I wished I went for in hindsight, probably, but I'm not willing to give up on him just yet. So, like I said, pretty much perfect defense, pretty much perfect midfield except Petrarca. And then the rucks, it's basically Wits versus Gawn. Who knows? Is Darcy R1 from here? That'd be so cool. But I'm really happy that I brought him in. Super happy that I've got Darcy Parish. So the Darcy's lad. Year of the Darcy. Let's go. Saviour, Darcy Parish. How good's he been? Oh my God, he just racks that ball up, dude. Anyway, I got a 128, 142 from him so far. So it's about a 135 average, exactly. That's pretty good. I mean, I was saying, that's what he did in the back end of last year, a 135 average. So if he can do that again, and people are like, oh, but he plays for Essendon, and Essendon are bad, so why would you pick Darcy Parish? But guess what? Darcy Parish's best scores come in losses. If you go back and check his history, his big 160s and 190s, which he hasn't done yet this season, they're coming, boys. Have come in losses. So I'm not too concerned about that. Very worried about Carlton, though. Carlton's midfield is just so good that you just don't know what's going to happen. But, God, he just racks the ball up like the number one disposal getter probably in the competition. So happy that I was able to bring him in, and the Jack Steele injury in that way, obviously I didn't want this overall, but since it happened, it was a blessing in disguise. All right. In the forward line, we want to bring in, first and foremost, in these two positions, obviously I've got Butters at the moment, so one of Butters or Cornelio is likely to go. However, Butters has been good, and Zach Butters does have a very good run. A really good run. So I'd back Zach Butters against Richmond. Sydney, not really. Gold Coast, definitely. Fremantle at Optus, don't love it. GWS at Adelaide Oval, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Melbourne is a worry. And then Geelong, Collingwood, Richmond, Essendon, and Adelaide to finish. So I love the end. This bit's a little patchy, a little dicey, maybe these three, and Sydney, but the end is perfect butters. Perfect butters. I reckon they're going to be still dreaming of a finals place. Not sure if they'll get there, Port Adelaide, this year, just because it's very tight at the top there. But I do kind of think Butters could be a good keeper. A lot of people are getting rid of him. Now, I'm the guy that didn't start him, missed out on the 114 and the 136. Okay? No one hates Butters more than me, believe me. I see that guy's face and I just want to punch it. Now, there's a chance we could have a renaissance, Butters and I. And he could be just what I need. A lot of people are going to jump off of him. And if I held him and he happened to go, let's say he goes 5 tons in a row to finish the year, woofed. That could put me in good stead. That could really could. So I'm considering that play. I'm considering it. But it's likely that one of Butters or Cornelio goes for absolute certainties, in my opinion, for my team is Bontempelli and Bailey Smith. Now that leaves one big, I don't know if this is the right word for it, but red herring. And that guy is the guy that just dominated. So I'm going to bring him up. You might know who he is. It's this guy who I brought into my team saying to everyone, hey, this guy's, if you don't have him, you could get really burnt. If you don't have Tim English, you could get burnt because he's F1 material. And if you don't have him in the forward line, if he was a ruck, it's not so bad. But since he's in the forward line, you got to have Tim English. That's what I was saying. So I brought him in, singing his praises. He gets injured. It's like, oh, thanks, Tim. It cost me a couple of trades there, bud. So it always makes it a little hard to bring him back in. Now, I'll have this to say about him. So everyone's super keen on Tim English right now. And why wouldn't you be? I saw a little bit of that game, and it was like he was a midfielder. I think for the majority of the game, he had more disposals than Jack McRae until Jack McRae brought it home in the last quarter. Thank goodness, since I had the captaincy on him. But we had Tim English playing as basically a midfielder and also, making marks. I think he had 5 free kicks for, 0 against. In the first round, he got a 123 with 8 free kicks for, 1 against. And it's like, what kind of score was he going to get without that? 8 times 4 is like 32. So, he didn't really go that good in that game other than those free kicks. And then he goes 160, basically playing as a midfielder because West Coast is so bad. He's not going to do that all the time. And I tell you what, this is the kicker. This is the important thing to note about Tim English. Bevo. What the fuck is Bevo going to do? We don't know. We never know what the fuck Bevo's going to do. And he is not a Supercoach friendly fella. That's what we know about Bevo. And this is my prediction. Bevo loves, for some reason, Stefan Martin. Why would you love a guy like I agree that Supercoach points back to that original point about Tom Lynch has a great game, gets a shit score. I agree that Supercoach scores aren't everything when it comes to deciding if a player is a really good player or not. But this guy, man, this isn't a good example because, wow, I had no idea that he actually went this well when he must have played for Brisbane. I mean, who would have thought Stefan Martin pulled out these scores in his career? That's shocking. That is genuinely shocking. That does not help my argument. So we're going to have to bring out the big plays and have a look at Footy Wire, Supercoach. So, wow, average 111. Stefan Martin, lad. That is a surprise. I had no idea, honestly. But not the man he used to be. How old is he now? He's 1986, so that makes him, he's going to be literally 40 in 4 years' time. I mean, that's old as fuck. So 36-year-old Stefan Martin, or 36 this year, I believe, is not the man he used to be, sadly. He's averaging 65 this year as a solo ruck, I think. So that's terrible. Now let's have a look at last year. So I already did this before, and I believe he played with Tim English 2 or 3 times in this year. And both times, other than I think one, Tim English did really well. But the other 2 times, Tim English did very poorly. Very poorly. I think they both played in the prelim and the grand final. So does that not tell you then that Bevo, at least at the end of last year, thinks that his best team, you don't not play your best team in the prelim and the grand final, is the combination of Stefan Martin and Tim English? Now, if you have a look at Tim English's scores in these 2 games, they're about the same as Stefan Martin. Okay? So Stefan Martin's currently injured, and that's why he hasn't been picked. What happens? I mean, I don't think he didn't get picked, did he? Let's just make sure of that very quickly. No, he didn't. So he is injured at the moment. Tim English is going to play solo ruck this week. Jeez. Anyone that picks him up now is going to get one big fat score. Oh, against Reece Stanley, it's not going to be blitz up. So still they're going to get a big fat score because Tim English is that much of a beast when he plays solo ruck. But my prediction is that Bevo's going to throw a spanner in the works, boys. And he's going to say, hey, my best team, even though they both suck when they play together, is Tim English and Stefan Martin playing together. And that's going to happen. Perfect timing after the bye. He's just got all of the, I don't know. He's going to give himself so much like reason in his own mind to be like, hey, look, it's been 2 weeks and it gives us a really good opportunity to game plan, and we're going to change things up quite drastically because we've got this 2-week opportunity, guys, and we're going to come out and be a new team. And, that's what I see happening. And I think they're going to go Stefan Martin and Tim English playing together, ideally for the rest of the season in Bevo's eyes. We'll see what happens there. But I am, at this stage, not going to pick up Tim English. I'm going to put Bontempelli and Bailey Smith ahead of him. And that will leave me with 5 trades. Now, when I've got 5 trades, I've got a completed team, but the issues are Cornelio. Cornelio's an issue, as well as maybe Jaden Short, possibly even Patrick Cripps. When I evaluate those 3 people, we've got Sam Walsh is a very good counterbalance to Patrick Cripps. It's very unlikely that Cripps does poorly and Sam Walsh does poorly, and I'm a man of diversification. So, I mean, this is a week where they both did well, so that's great. But considering I'm not really in a position to trade out Patrick Cripps, I consider Sam Walsh the perfect counterbalance to him. So I'm happy to just keep Patrick Cripps. Everyone's going to keep him pretty much. No one really is in a position where they can trade out Paddy Cripps ahead of someone else that's not as good. So probably going to keep my midfield as it is, adding Sam Walsh. The defense, there is genuinely a chance if Butters and Cornelio start popping off and doing, 95 plus averages from here on out, maybe a little better, there is a possibility, depending on Short's form, that I trade him to Jordan Dawson if Jordan Dawson starts popping off, because I do believe Jordan Dawson is a 105 to 110 potential, and there's possible that Jaden Short from here goes 95 to 100. So we're looking at a gain of 10 points there. Yeah. And then that leaves basically Cornelio. So I've got 5 trades left, and I can trade out Cornelio. So I do believe that since the coach has changed, Cornelio has reached a new level, and his next opponent is going to be North Melbourne. Perfect, similar to obviously choosing Took Miller as VC this week. Perfect opponent for Cornelio. Western Bulldogs, not ideal. However, they have a very strong rivalry, and it's possible that he still has a good game against them. He has had a 135 in the past. I like Collingwood. Don't love Hawthorne, but Hawthorne at this point of the season know for sure they're not, in contention. And last week they sort of rolled over a little bit against Gold Coast. I can see that sort of happening more and more as the season progresses. Don't totally hate it. Now, what I can see maybe happening is Cornelio coming up in price. And honestly, when Stefan Martin comes back to the team with Western Bulldogs, let's just have a look at their run. They're going to face GWS. Okay, now that's Braden Pruce or Matt Flynn. Not ideal. Hawthorne, that's a travesty. However, Hawthorne did pick up a ruck in the mid-season draft. Not that that's saying much. So that's a concern. Then he's got to face McInerney. Maybe Tom Hickey's back. St Kilda, Paddy Ryder, Max Gawn. So there's a few games sort of through here where he could, if he's playing with Stefan Martin in particular, drop a stinker or 2 or 3. And if he does that, there's a possibility that hopefully I'll have 50 to 100k sort of just in my bank account. I can just do a straight swap. I think that's the only situation where I bring in Team English, is if he comes down in price a little bit, and then I can just do the one trade. And it's probably not going to be straight away. It's probably going to be sort of like around this sort of 18, 19 sort of area. And then, maybe he can go big at the end of the season. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So that pretty much sums it up. I know this one's been a long one, or I think it has been. Wow, it's been a really, really long one. Oh my God. So sorry about that. I did kind of got away from me a little bit there. So I will wrap it up with this. NRL's on tonight, so that's really cool. Usually I'd say something about that. Titans versus Cowboys. Pretty keen for that. It's already started, so going to get into watching that straight after this. But I will leave you with this. This weekend, I am going to Melbourne, and I'm going with the boys. And it's going to be an absolute ripper of a time, boys. It's going to be a ripper of a time, because the star attraction, or the big reason for going, is Devin Haney versus Georgie Cambosis. Now, this is actually a wonderful spectacle, and this sort of spectacle is what I'm all about. So, in 2014, to give an example, I went to the World Cup in Brazil. And the reason I wanted to do that was because it was once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Obviously, World Cup's only once every 4 years, and I would say that the football capital of the world is Brazil. If you had to choose one, they've won the most World Cups. They're the most football-centric, crazy nation. They're going to have a World Cup. That's only going to happen once in my lifetime, or at least whilst I'm in my youth. I'm going, and I'm making it happen. So I went there, and it was crazy, and everything that you could have hoped for, is what it was. Now, similarly, maybe not quite as extravagant, but similarly, George Cambosis, okay, he is primarily of Greek heritage, all right, and he literally describes himself as a Spartan. He says, I have, Spartan is like mythology. Like, those two things kind of go hand in hand. So this is like a most wondrous occasion. And the highest Greek population in Australia is Melbourne. So it's going to be insane. It's going to be a Colosseum, boys. It's going to be a Colosseum. You know what I mean? We can't travel nearly as much as we used to be able to. And Marvel Stadium on Sunday in the daytime is going to be fucking Colosseum in Rome, bro. It's going to be full of Greeks watching their countrymen. Well, I mean, he's Australian, but their blood going up against an opponent that is the favourite. It's literally the underdog going into the Colosseum, and I'm going to be there, boys, and it's going to be that Michael Buffer guy. I think that's his name. Literally Bruce Buffer from the UFC. Oh, okay. I wouldn't have usually told this story, but I got to tell you guys because it's crazy. So, if anyone knows the guy that's like, it's time, that guy in the UFC, and it's just like, bro, I'm so buzzed. I'm not even on drugs right now, but it feels like I am. That Bruce Buffer guy that says that in the UFC, in boxing, who had done it for many years before Bruce, his name is Michael Buffer. Okay. So Bruce Buffer, the guy from the UFC, he's kind of chilling one day. He's driving on the road. Well, it's actually his dad that's driving him. They're in like a pickup truck or some shit like that. They're driving down the road, some fucking highway in the USA, some, shit like that. And then Bruce kind of, without really expecting anything in return, was like, it's interesting how that Michael Buffer guy has the same last name as me. It'd be pretty weird if we were brothers or something, wouldn't it? And his dad's like, you are. He's your brother. Bruce is like, mate, I'm fucking 40 years old. What the hell took you so long to tell me that? Can't you see how that is the most insane thing in the world? That, he ended up being an announcer in a completely different organization, almost just as iconic and as epic as the guy who's like, let's get ready to rumble. Those guys are fucking brothers and didn't know it for 45 years or something like that. And they're brothers and they do the same thing. That's one of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard. Okay? Particularly the way it was presented to the brothers, from the father who knew about it. Oh dear. Anyway, it's going to be Michael Buffer presenting doing the announcing. It's going to be like, the walkouts. It's just going to be so sweet. The crowd is going to be absolutely buzzing. When Devin Haney comes out, they're going to be booing. It's like passionate Greek fans packing the Marvel Stadium, Coliseum, getting super into it. And I'm going to be there. I'm going to be like, saying shit to him. Hopefully I'm able to do that and I'm close enough, just because it's, a bit of fun. And then Georgie's going to come out and be like, rip his head off, Georgie! Rip his head off, Georgie! Like, it's just... it's going to be classic. It's just going to be classic, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I can't wait to just be a part of the whole spectacle. And, flying down to Melbourne to make that happen. Super stoked. It's going to be a great weekend with the boys. And hopefully, just before, the festivities sort of kick off, we got Took Miller coming through with the goods, with a big fat VC score. And it's one of the great weekends. One of the great weekends on the back of that. So with that, I bid you farewell.